This is my front lawn. This is the first week of March, and this is a video about identifying native plants in your green space that you can let grow and not mow. So this is my front lawn mown this time. We mowed it last year right before it got cold. Now, right now, we have these lovely little wildflowers that are coming up. You can just now see the bases of them. This is oakleaf fleabane. So learning to identify what it looks like in the spring when there's no flowers is really key to a lot of these wildflowers. So there's a very large patch of this in my front lawn, and you'll get to see the flowers in the next clip. So I let this grow for a couple of weeks while it's in bloom, and then I collect seeds. It's loaded with pollinators, bees and butterflies and beetles, and my front lawn looks like a beautiful wildflower meadow. And all you have to do is identify it and not mow it. So let me show you how pretty it gets. So here are the beautiful oakleaf fleabane in all their glory. So these guys will die back in a few weeks. They attract an unbelievable amount of pollinators, butterflies and bees and beetles. And they're just gorgeous to look at. It's so wonderful to me to walk out my front door and just see a field of wildflowers and butterflies in activity instead of just a plain vanilla lawn. So I really appreciate the wildflowers. I hope that some of you will too, and maybe get some tips from my new book, Central Florida Wildlife Gardening. Turn your yard into a wildlife oasis. And this is part of my concept. Identifying native plants in your green space and then not mowing them. You automatically create a wildlife habitat because you're providing for the pollinators, you're providing for so many different things just by allowing these wildflowers to grow. I've been meaning to seed another wildflower in here that will bloom after the fleabane, but I just haven't gotten around to it. I think tickseed or coreopsis would probably work really well because that blooms right about the time that these guys quit blooming. And that's another concept to use. Try to plant things that bloom at different seasons, so then you'll have something blooming all the time for yourself and for the wildlife. I mean, it completely depends upon your budget and your ability and probably your homeowner's restrictions and things like that, but if you get creative, you'll be surprised at how wonderful Mother Nature can provide for you. I mean, I didn't seed these. I don't know where they came from. I imagine one of the neighbors' yards or maybe across the street. All I did was identify them and let them come up and bloom. So it'll probably be about 3 weeks. I'll collect seeds and then we'll mow because it'll just be kind of like brownish looking stalks. But they last quite a surprising while. It's really nice to have these in the spring. So I hope some of you will give it a try. It couldn't be easier and it couldn't be cheaper. So as you can see, I've left some of the fleabane coming up among my potted plants. This is on my side yard. So throughout the weeks that they're blooming in the front yard, the seeds get blown back in the backyard and the side yard. And since I just have a narrow walking path through here, I just let the fleabane grow. It's just so cute and so pretty to look at. I just love it. So there's no reason for me to weed whack it. because it's providing for the butterflies and the pollinators on the side yard as well as it is in the front yard. So once again, if you identify the basal leaves of this particular wildflower and you see them around your flower pots, then you know what to expect. And in the spring, you'll get some beautiful little wildflowers here and there around your container gardening. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to mow it. I guess probably in 3 weeks, if some of them look really brown and untidy, I may trim them off with my hand trimmer, but usually they just die back and they don't make much of a mess. There aren't as many here as there are in the front yard. And I do actually have coreopsis or tickseed coming up over here too, because I'd had some growing in a pot and it put seed out. So in 3 weeks or so, at the end of the bloom of the oakleaf fleabane, the tickseed will start blooming. And those are the same thing. You need to identify the basal leaves. And then once you find those, you'll see the flower stalks starting to form and come up. So just take a note from Mother Nature and keep an eye out for natives that you may have in your green space. Well, the oakleaf fleabane have stopped blooming, and now the coreopsis are coming up and blooming. I put out some seeds a few Novembers ago along the walking path and along my canal. So these guys are annuals. They like wet feet and full sun, and they need 2 to 3 months of cold stratification. So I like to direct sow them, but you can certainly just store them in the refrigerator for a few months and then put the seeds out. The ones I did along my walking path on the side yard didn't germinate as well, I think because the grass is a little more dense. But they're still really beautiful and they attract tons of pollinators. So I just run my electric mower down the walking path. And then every time I visit the side yard, I have these beautiful, gorgeous, bright yellow wildflowers on each side. So I hope you get a chance to try the coreopsis. We have quite a few species, so check it out. And as I said, the ones on the canal did so much better. It's a lot moister and it gets a lot sunnier, so that may be why. But they're just bursting everywhere with blooms and pollinators. So if you get a chance to try these, I would suggest direct sowing them around November. That way they'll get 2 to 3 months of cold stratification and will start blooming and growing in the spring. So just take a look. Once you see them, learn to identify the basal part of the plants, which are the leaves that grow at ground level. And then you will know where your seeds ended up, because I've grown it before and the seeds ended up on the opposite side of the path. So learn to identify the leaves when they start coming up, and then in a few weeks you'll have these gorgeous yellow blooms. No maintenance. These last a little bit longer than the oakleaf fleabane. But if you put them in the right place, they just do beautiful all on their own without any help from you. So please give it a try. So this is the other side of the canal where the tickseed are. And this beautiful cypress tree was here when I moved in. But there's a little maple and a little elderberry starting to come up there. And this spot is great for little native wildflowers that like wet feet. So these are marsh fleabane. And when they come up in the middle of my walking paths, I move them over here. they do really well. There's not a whole lot of sun, but if I put them right on the edge, they're fine. So I planted a swamp dogwood here and a red maple, and they're both doing really well. So transplant your volunteers. Definitely find the right place for them. And don't just throw them in the compost heap. Move them to another spot for yourself and the pollinators. Give it a try. I bet you'll like it. So this is the other side of the street. This is my front yard that grows right next to the canal. So this is a perfect spot to transplant volunteers that like wet feet, or direct sow wildflower seeds that like wet feet. I direct sowed mock bishop's weed over here. It's coming up and providing larval food and flowers for the pollinators and the butterflies. It's a host plant for the eastern black swallowtail. A lot of these beautiful rushes came up, and then in between those, a beautiful terrestrial green orchid called Habenaria repens. So you never know what's going to pop up if you don't mow. It's amazing. Sometimes you'll get the most exotic, beautiful things you couldn't even imagine just spring up in your yard. And of course, here's my patch of coreopsis that I seeded. I mean, not mowing and letting it grow is really satisfying on so many levels. Here's another little patch of the mock bishop's weed, and that's a native wildflower in the celery family that feeds black swallowtails. And I've had quite a few caterpillars on that. And it's an annual, but it reseeds, so it's a really nice plant to grow in wet sites for the butterflies. Don't mow and you'll be so surprised at what comes up. Be patient and let Mother Nature show you what she has to offer. In the backyard, we live right on the lake, so it can be problematic with the wind. So I've been trying to find some natives that tolerate the wind well. And it seems like the seagrape fits that bill, so I planted 2 of them here. They were about 1 foot tall last year. They've just gone crazy. And they're beautiful and lush and tropical, and they provide flowers for the wildlife, fruit for the wildlife, and they provide me with privacy and windbreaks, and I have to do nothing maintenance-wise with them. So I really, really appreciate these plants. It's been a tough place to find natives that will be okay here. Another plant that I found that does well is a dahoon holly, and they grow naturally all around the lake, but I didn't have any on my property, so I purchased a couple, and its feet are always wet. It doesn't get a lot of shade, so between the wind and looking for sun, it's leaned over a little bit. And this video was shot in December, so it has ripe fruit on it. It's very beautiful in the winter. So they provide flowers for the pollinators in the spring, and they provide beautiful, gorgeous red fruit for the birds in winter. And then I planted a couple of elderberries here, and they bloom pretty much all year long, and they have beautiful flowers, beautiful fruit. The wildlife absolutely love the elderberry. They're very easy to transplant. They're very easy to start by cuttings. You can root cuttings in water or root them in moist soil. The taller tree to the left is a red maple that I planted when we moved in. It was 3 feet tall. Now it's just so gorgeous. I'm loving it. So this little island of plants is all natives. And it's just because I picked the right plant for the right place. I like to edge my flowering plants with logs rather than traditional edging, mainly because, number one, it's free. Number two, it provides foraging and nesting for wildlife. And number three, it's a lot less labor and maintenance than installing edging blocks. It also keeps my husband from weed eating my lovely native plants like this partridge pea. The bumblebees love partridge pea. I've been out here several times early in the morning and saw the bumblebees sleeping in amongst the foliage. So where I don't line the edges with logs, I just mow a walking path. And sometimes I just mow around an island of, say, Spanish needles or sedges and native grasses. And if they start to get a little too wide, I just tidy them up. I mean, it takes, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks before the grass starts coming back and it starts looking green, but it's super easy to do. Oh, there's one of my resident marsh rabbits. So this is wedelia. It's a non-native, but I enjoy having it. Here's another non-native milkweed, that's scarlet milkweed, that's silky gold. I know wedelia is non-native and it's aggressive, but for me it provides so much more interest than just having a lawn. It's constantly full of butterflies and bees and these beautiful yellow flowers. Once in a while I set the mower at its highest point and mow it, and it doesn't seem to inhibit the flower blooming at all. So it's a nice maintenance-free plant for me. So I'm on the side of I like wedelia. But I mean, I'm sure if I had a manicured flower bed, I wouldn't want it. So I can feel the pain of some people. But I mean, this is constantly full of bees and small butterflies, and it's just really cheerful. So don't knock it too much. So having lupus keeps me from doing yard work pretty much all the time. So I try to let Mother Nature help me. This is a highbush blueberry. I happened to be in Lowe's one day looking through the nursery section, and they had these on clearance. They were like 75% off, so I bought 8 of them. And I planted them throughout my property. Since I have a high water table, they're growing just fine, completely on their own. Now, a high water table means when you put a shovel in the ground and dig out a shovel full of soil, the hole fills in pretty much right away with water. So that's what a high water table means. And highbush blueberries love acidic soil near lakes and streams with high water table. This is climbing aster. This is a native perennial that gets beautiful, fragrant flowers and attracts a wide variety of pollinators. Bees of all sorts, from honeybees to bumblebees, carpenter bees, leafcutter bees, all the butterflies. It's just a great pollinator plant. But it does need wet feet, so I bought some bare root plants on eBay and put it right next to the lake. And it's spread out to about 6 foot in length, and it's just doing fantastic. It roots really easily, as long as you keep the soil really wet in your pots. I mean, it's a maintenance-free plant, and I just find maintenance-free plants to be glorious to have in my green space, especially when they're this beautiful They smell amazing and they attract a million pollinators. Can't ask for much more than that from a plant. This is another example of putting the right plant in the right place. This is a native eastern redbud. When I put it in the ground, it was about 2 feet high. I brought it from my other house, so it came in the move with me. That was 4 years ago. Now I guess it's about 12 feet high. The front part of my yard is pretty dry. So I'd say dry to average. And that's the requirement for an eastern redbud. So I put it in the ground when I moved in. I don't know, I think I've watered it maybe twice. Last winter when we had a really dry winter, I watered it a few times, but for the most part, I don't water this. So this is another example. Put the plants in the right place, and you can just enjoy them for what they are without working on anything. Okay, for the native plant elitists, please turn away. I just had to show everyone how cute this was because I hadn't been outside for a couple of weeks. I was feeling really bad. And when I went out, there were these little surprise sunflowers. So the squirrels had planted some seeds there for me. So places where I don't mow, I'm always pleasantly surprised by these little surprises that pop up. So be open to change, be open to not having everything super tidy, and you'll be amazed at things that come up when you least expect them. And of course, sunflowers are annual, so I can't move them, but they're in an out-of-the-way place. Thank you, little squirrel gardeners. This is the east side of my yard, and I really love the swamp dogwood and the coastal plain willow. They both provide food for animals. They're both native. The swamp dogwood has made a beautiful privacy screen for me from the neighbors. And once it gets fruit on it, the squirrels absolutely love it. The squirrels they'll spend all day getting ripe berries off of it. But rather than put up an ugly privacy fence, I wanted some natural, native plants. Especially since I'm right next to the lake, I need to use water-loving plants. So both swamp dogwood and coastal plain willow love wet feet. So it's a perfect spot for these guys. I've never done anything except put them in the ground. So make your gardening fun and easy so you'll want to spend more time doing it. Use Florida native plants in the right location, and you'll have a much easier time keeping your garden happy and healthy. Now enjoy watching this bumblebee sleeping.